I don't even know what it means.
I like how the first thing anybody heard when they logged in was, I don't even know what it means.
I didn't look at the time when I was talking. I just kept on going off the top of my head. But hey, we're here. What are the better way to bring us in? So we're here.
There you go. Live
Another
happens
Tuesday
live.
night. Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
Appreciate everybody tuning in. Herb and Raj podcast. Already getting some comments. There's our Georgia guy, Randy, who will be on tomorrow
Evening, Randy.
night.
How are you doing, sir?
Yep. Raj has had the pleasure of meeting Randy in person. I won't admit to being jealous, but I'm very jealous. It's not fair. So that's fine.
In my defense, I did have to wait in line after he signed an autograph. So I had to wait for the autographs. I had to wait for him to take pictures. Then he finally had to sit down with me. So it took some time.
It's understandable. It's understandable.
Yeah.
Big Mike, the running. Thank you. And what he's talking about is this right here. Get Mike over the hump. Mike's at 49. He's trying to get 50 and keep moving from there. So please like and subscribe.
Somebody please subscribe. Yes.
Yep. Lady Alpha, what's up? Lady, hope you're doing
Lady Alpha, thank you for joining us.
If you're on her channel, she had some really good news today, so go check that out. But very happy for you. And, of course, the Roll Tide. All right, Raj, so the summer series comes to an end. Our very last team, the team that you specifically requested to be on the show. So,
when you first brought up the idea of the summer series and we started reaching out, kind of just going around and naming out teams, I was like, Colorado and USC were just two teams that just came to mind. They've got, obviously USC has such a historic program, things they got going over there on the West Coast, even though they're not in the Pac-12 anymore. And then Colorado for a reason, for what happened last year and their recent come up. So I'm glad that our USC guest is here and looking forward to it.
Okay. So without further ado, or with further ado, because we just butcher the English language on this show.
Okay.
Raj, this is the man that actually hired Lincoln Riley. Mm-hmm. When Reggie Bush got his Heisman back, he was the person that presented it to him.
And physically gave it to him?
Physically gave it back to him, yes. And he was at the combine this past combine, and they said he throws a prettier ball than Caleb Williams. Welcome into the show, Mark Colton. Sir. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
Wow, hey, Mark.
I can do this.
Are you finding out some other stuff about yourself you didn't know tonight?
Every day, apparently.
No,
I will say this: about Reggie Bush getting his Heisman Trophy back, I was a big proponent of that. That was part of my life mission. I made sure people knew where I stood on that.
Yeah. I think that was long overdue. I think we can all agree that was long.
Should never
overdue.
happen.
So come on.
Should have never happened.
Yeah. And I think when you recorded a short about it, right? Like a quick podcast about it, right? That's what I was listening to. I think. Yeah.
Oh yeah. When USC got that back, that's number 8. That's more than anybody else now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what separates USC and Alabama. The blue bloods from the rest of the world is. We got accolades that we can rest on our laurels with. So.
Yeah. What were you about to say, Raj? I'm sorry, they cut you off.
No. I mean, you can't take away from what Reggie Bush did that season on the field. So regardless of what happened on the field, you just can't take away from that and can't be duplicated. It was an awesome season. He's one of the best college football players ever, to be honest with you. So phenomenal. Again, it was long overdue, and I'm glad he got it back.
And when you think about it, he was really the godfather of NIL, because that's what he got busted for was trying to create an advertising agency based off of his name, image, and likeness. And look where we are today.
Yeah.
I know.
in the muck, as we like to call it.
Yeah.
So we did have an off the camera conversation too about Raj and I's first experience with USC, I guess, or most recent experience, I should say. Mark's smiling now, but he was like, "Were you guys at the game? Was it 2017?" And Raj, you were kind of sharing your thoughts about it.
So the game, the 2017 game, opening game of the season is Alabama versus USC. That game was played here in Arlington at AT&T Stadium. What I remember about that game was, coming into the game, it was the word around T-Town that Blake Barnett was the guy, and we thought Blake Barnett was going to be our future at Alabama. I had even posted something on Facebook about it, like Blake Barnett, he's the guy. He's going to be the next big QB. Comes out, I think he fumbled the ball on the first or second play, if I recall. Nick Saban pulled him, put in Jalen Hurts, and obviously, the rest is history. Luckily, we won that game. Jalen Hurts went on to do good things. Yeah, luckily. I'm trying to be polite, Mark. I'm trying to be polite.
When we were pre-gaming here, USC was winning that game for the first 20 minutes. Yeah. And, USC actually had the number one quarterback in the country on that roster at the time. His name was Max Brown. Yeah. And he'll be the first to tell you that, he's probably the biggest first-round 5-star bust ever. His own words. Mm-hmm. But he threw a pick six in that game, and once that happened, the wheels just kind of fell off. And I was the final score 52 to something.
52 to 3,
52 to 6.
Nothing for a while.
Yeah. And that's the season, right? You guys ended up changing your quarterback later that season, right? And that's kind of what sparked everybody's like, oh, should they be in the playoff or whatever talk, I think at the end of the year.
Yeah, they came out looking like caged dogs out of the tunnel, and they ended up, tail between their legs at the end of that game, but they ended up in the Rose Bowl, and season ended really well. So it's not how you start, it's how you finish, right?
Yep. Yeah. Oh, our Georgia guy always has to bring up the stuff. So that's because it's become a meme now also, though, that people
I was about to say you see it as a meme nowadays. So that's where it's just starting to come back. And that's that one moment that a lot of people remember pregame. So
if I'm a Georgia fan right now, I'm a little concerned about Lincoln Riley and his staff coming into Kirby Smart's backyard and taking players. So,
shots fired! Because Randy did say has so we usually at least get into like the 15 to 20 minute mark before.
we're not even 10 minutes in.
Replace anytime.
I like Mark. Mark is saying, "Listen, I'm going to defend my squad, man. Whatever it takes." Mark's got the gloves on; he's ready. So.
Well, he did say, Raj, he doesn't shy away from contact. So he said he
can't. You can't. You gotta ride with your team, win, lose, or draw. So that's just how it is in sports.
Yeah.
So.
But on that note, when you were talking about that, like because of the way like NIL and commitments, like recruiting has become a little bit of a boondoggle. Like you even had a good post or a good podcast about this. Like, go ahead and I kind of want you to reiterate that you just don't get as excited about it as what you used to.
Yeah, I've been following recruiting since the early 2000s, and it just the kids when they commit, it's always been use the word commitment. I'm using finger quotes loosely.
Yes,
if they know how to spell the word, let alone if they know the actual definition of it. But as the years have gone by, it's gotten even, I don't know, the word commitment has held even less meaning. And now with NIL and the transfer portal, it's when you say I'm committed to a school, what you're basically doing is telling everybody else out there, let the bidding wars begin. I got my first offer that I'm willing to accept.
Yes.
What can you do for me now? Yeah. And that's kind of what you see going on right now. And it's taken a lot of the enthusiasm away.
It does.
I hear from the fans. Right. It's like, why should I invest my time and my energy into these kids when, they say that USC is my dream school. No, it's not. Your dream school is whoever's writing the biggest check right now.
Right.
Yep.
And I totally agree. I was having a talk last year with an Auburn fan today, and we're like, I don't know what the sport's going to look like in 5 years, but it has turned into an absolute mess with the way they go.
Listen, I hear a lot of horror stories behind the scenes. I talk to the parents, I talk to the recruits, I talk to the high school coaches, and I don't know if I could be a college football coach right now, or a college coach, at any level, basketball, football, whatever it is, because there's so many outside forces pulling in so many different directions. You don't know who you're supposed to be talking to. You talk to the agent, you talk to the parent, you talk to the kid.
No.
Yeah, Herbert and I talked about it. Herbert and I have talked about this a lot, especially within the past year. when it comes to recruiting, to your point, Mark, there's just so many different outside forces. And one other thing you have to take into consideration is a lot of these kids, especially when they're in high school, especially with social media, regardless of where they live, they can connect to it with each other just like that via, Twitter or Instagram, whatever the case may be. So if you have a guy who's committed to USC, he might reach out to whoever, all these other guys. Hey man, come to USC. Let's build something here, etc. And then, to your other point is that when I hear about recruits in like 2026 and Alabama got one today, it was a 2027 commit. I understand they're like, the 2024 season hasn't started yet. Anything could happen over the next 3 years. That means no disrespect to the kid, but right now that just doesn't mean much to me. I'm more focused about who we have on our roster going into this fall and what we could build with that program. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. And we even heard about Phil Knight coming out regarding Oregon, saying like, "Hey, listen, I want to see them win a championship before I pass away. Open up the bag, whatever they need, give it to them. I'll fund it." So when you see comments like that, it's basically like, who's paying me the most? That's where I'm going to go, because I'm only going to be here 3 or 4 years. Then I'm off to the league anyway. So,
look, I think Nick Saban changed the game probably a year or two earlier than he really wanted to. I don't think he was ready to play this game anymore. At least the way, because it's gone from, the power structure was the coaches. That was who was in charge. The tail's wagging the dog now, and the recruits know that. They are the ones in charge. And when you've got an alpha type of personality like a Nick Saban, you don't want some snot-nosed 16, 17-year-old saying, "How much are you going to give me and I'll come pay for it? Play for it." Right. Like, what? Who are you?
Yeah. Which you just bring us to one of our. Oh, go ahead, Raj. Go ahead. No, that's your comment.
Oh, sorry.
I can already tell.
No, you're good. You're good. It used to be that players were supposed to go to whatever school would help to develop. That's what it should be. Whatever school is going to help to develop you to become a better athlete on and off the field, a better person and athlete on and off the field. And then if you make it to the NFL, so be it. You'll be prepared. It's just not like that anymore. People just want to go wherever the bag is and live the short-term dream.
I'll take it even a step further. It's not just about the bag. It's how they can actually manipulate the system now. Think about it. There are the way the system is set up. If I wanted to play at 3 different schools, I can do that. Whoever recruits me, I can sign with them. You know what? I didn't like the way the coach used me. I'm going to jump in that transfer portal. I'm going to go to Alabama for a year now. Now I'm going to play there. Oh, you know what? I still got that grad transfer in my back pocket. Who's the hot school? Who's ready to win the national championship? Maybe I'll go to Ohio State and finish off my career. Players actually putting a game plan together to do it that type of way.
Which is sad, because you see most of your great stories are, honestly, it's 90% quarterbacks who were at one school, transferred to another to finish. Once you go into that second transfer, like, you're not going NFL. I mean, for the most part. Obviously, I'm missing some stories in there. But after the set, like we talked about DJ but DJU, as we call him, you're on your third school, man.
AT Daniels. How many schools did he play at?
Yeah.
I mean, I know where he started. Now he's coaching.
I mean, even when you take a look at some of the ages of some of these kids when they're coming out of school, like was it Utah? Cam Rising, I want to say Cam Rising is 24, 25, somewhere in that range. And then apparently he still has he might have another year of eligibility after this season, that'll be like his 8th year in college. And I'm like, dude, at some point in your life, you have to say, you know what? College was cool. I lived that lifestyle. I did that, but it's time to grow up and be an adult now and do some other stuff. But
you can actually make a living playing college football now. Think
about
about it.
You can.
You're going to be paid by the university starting next year. NIL's a signing bonus.
I don't blame him. So I do have to give Georgia their couple. This was in regards to your response to your earlier one. So and then this was his latest one. Usually tried hard and good on him. So
look, right now, California, as far as the type of players that USC is looking for, it's in a down cycle. And you're going to go to places like Georgia or Louisiana. If they've got the dudes right now, and USC needs big bodies, that's where you're going. If they've got the athletes that fit their system, that's where you're going. And until USC puts a proof of concept out there on the defensive side of the ball, that's the challenge that they're up against. Hopefully, we get to see that proof of concept this year, because the last 2 years have been really sucky.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I mean, honestly, he just held on to Grinch a little too long there?
Yeah. It was understandable him bringing Alex Grinch with him year one. After year one, I talked about this on my show. I think if his good friend Dave Nichol doesn't pass away, he probably doesn't keep his inner circle as close and tight knit.
Mm-hmm.
He needed to kind of lean on. At the end of Caleb Williams' first year at USC, you got the Heisman Trophy. You were literally a pulled hamstring away from going to the playoffs. And you saw the defense. It was opportunistic is the best way to put it. I mean, they led the country in turnovers. Their plus was just weird. And then you saw what happened last year. The real defense showed up, and everyone, including myself, said, you got to get rid of Alex Grinch.
Right.
He didn't, and he had a really humbling experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, I saw it, and it seemed like definitely a waste of, I guess, Caleb Williams' final year as well. So going back to something that we were just kind of talking about, because you did mention him, and we always like to tie it into our Alabama folks. What was your first reaction to Nick Saban's retirement?
I was like, wow, okay. Didn't expect that one. Like I said, I saw signs of things happening.
Right.
Everybody, the other programs were catching up to him. Obviously, Georgia has caught up there. And it was just the way things are going, and knowing who Nick Saban is, what makes up his DNA. And when you're not winning the recruiting battles that you're typically winning, you can point to one thing. And it was just something at his age, he doesn't need to prove to anybody anymore what he's capable of doing, that he knows how to develop players.
Right.
So it probably took it took something like this, where he just doesn't have the type of control that he needs to say, you know what, I've done it all. I don't need this anymore.
Right.
Let me work in an advisory type of role.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Raj, did you have one? Go ahead.
No, I think by him being in that advisory role, it definitely helps us out with our program as well. Because I mean, when it comes to recruiting, he can still give his input in, and he can still kind of give his optimism and in his advisory role. But it does make me a little nervous, because some part of me is kind of wondering, like, how does Coach DeBoer feel about that? Like, I know DeBoer's not going to go to Nick Saban for everything. You see what I'm saying? But at some point, is he going to be like, I got this, but only time will tell with that comes in, and winning is going to help out with that. But I guess it was a big relief for us to know that Nick Saban was still going to be there within the stadium. Basically, he's got an office in the stadium, so
you don't want to be the first guy to follow. You never want to be the next guy to follow a legend.
No.
And that's the fact that Coach DeBoer is actually stepping into that role. Coming all the way from Washington. That's a big step.
Yeah.
So I respect that he's got that type of moxie in him, I guess, to say, hey, you know what, I'm going from Washington. It's not a crap program. It's a pretty good program, but it's not Alabama. It doesn't have Washington doesn't have those national championships or the Heisman trophies or all the other accolades that go along with
it. So you do have an Oklahoma guy has jumped in there. So talk about Lincoln Riley. So what do you think if he has where is the line? And he's saying drawing the line being the hot seat. What do you think for Lincoln Riley? And we're going to kind of look at the schedule, so we'll go a little bit more into that later. But did want to get Oklahoma's still a little bit upset. So
look, I relish their salty tears all the time. So they're always on my timeline. I appreciate it. Like I said, I love the back and forth that fan bases have with each other. Now, as far as Lincoln Riley is concerned, he took the first step. He's taken a couple of steps. He admitted he had a problem. He got rid of his problem. He went out and he found a really good defensive coordinator that took a program the year before from craptacular and made them one of the best defenses in the country. They have the number 2. I don't know if people know this. UCLA had the number 2 rush defense in the entire country last year.
Yeah.
I think most people would agree USC has better talent than UCLA. So if Coach Danton Lynn can come over and have a similar effect, it doesn't have to be number 2 defense in the country. Everybody knows as long as Lincoln Riley is coaching offense, USC is going to score points. That side of the ball is taken care of.
Right.
So USC has to go from being really bad on defense to just being good, average.
Yeah.
And now you're in the 12-team playoff system. I'm going to put my money on Lincoln Riley's team being in the playoffs if they play any type of respectable defense.
Right.
Yeah.
Because last year they gave up 34 points a game. Had they given up 28 points per game last year, you could put 2 more wins on that total in the regular season. And that might not have gotten to the playoffs, but it just changes the whole context of things. It just shows you
Right.
where
the narrative
USC
for the season has changed. Yeah.
It just shows you where USC was.
Yeah. No.
They got to a point in that Washington game when USC scored 42 points at home, but gave up 52 to Washington. You knew that that Alex Grinch was done. There was a timeout. And you know how the coach will put up the hand and everybody, does the out thing before they head back to the field. They left Coach Grinch hanging, hand up high. Nobody met him in the huddle.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, bye.
Yeah. That's where you kind of just walk off the field at that point. Like, all right, I guess it
Yeah.
was a good run. We're done.
Yeah.
He was done.
You go home and talk to your family and say, yeah, this isn't working out. We're probably going to have to move again. But we'll figure some things out. But yeah, I kind of dropped the ball here, literally.
Yeah, there was something in the line of communication. It was long gone. That they tuned him out.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll get into that, I guess, when we kind of go over the schedule one by one, a little bit here and there. So, and I will give Georgia his stacked as Alabama's. I mean, because the fans are rabid and your stacked roster means like if we don't win every game, we're still upset. So there's a lot of reasons. That's
why I said year one, this is going to be a very, very important year one for Coach DeBoer because it's just going to set the tone for the upcoming years. And to your point, Herb, I mean, we know how our Alabama fan base is. Coming off Nick Saban and his legendary run, very rational. Coming off Nick Saban's legendary coaching tenure, I mean, we got people out here that we know that still think we're going to go absolutely undefeated and win a national championship in Coach DeBoer's first year. I don't think Herb and I would not be surprised if we lost a few games. I think that's a little more realistic, especially when you look at our schedule. But yeah, there are some Bama fans. Oh, we're gonna 15-0 and win the Natty. I don't like that mindset all the time because I said let's be realistic because when we actually lose the game, pump the brake because when you actually lose the game, I don't want you guys overreacting. I don't want anybody going crazy and say, oh, it's Coach DeBoer is not the right guy or Nick Saban would have won that game. Saban only had 2 undefeated seasons in 17 years. All right, so let's give DeBoer some time, give him a chance, see how this first 3 or 4 years go, and we'll be all right. He inherited a really, really good roster, so we're in good hands.
Yeah, if I'm an Alabama fan, the first thing I'm looking for, obviously you want to look for the win, but is that team playing with the type of effort that a Nick Saban team would play with? Right. If you're getting that, but you're still coming up short, you can live with that. That's what it was like when Pete Carroll took over USC's program. That first year, it was painful. I mean, they went 6-6. They lost every game by a touchdown or less. They were in every single game.
Right.
Yeah. But they couldn't get over the hump. That next year is when they took off. They smashed Iowa in the Orange Bowl. Kirk Herbstreit saying at the end of the thing, nobody wants to play this team right now. Right. And we know what happened after that. So, to your point, absolutely, Alabama fan, patience.
Yeah. Yep. We don't know that word. The education system is not that great.
It's been tested for quite a while now. So ours is wearing thin. It's, in fact, you can see through our patience right now. There is no more.
Yeah. Air Raid, we'll pop yours up here in just a minute as we start to move towards there. I did want to talk a little bit about kind of the demise of the Pac-12, of course, and USC's place in it, and then the move to the Big Ten. So how are your thoughts on how that whole thing unfolded and how they kind of moved into there?
Oh, I was one of the biggest cheerleaders. I was happy it happened.
Really?
Let me ask you this. I'll just put it in terms that maybe Alabama fans or SEC fans might understand.
All right, we are not rational.
As much as I'm not it's not something I like. SEC supports SEC teams. You know, you hear it all the time. SEC football, clap, 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 whatever. USC carried the Pac-8, the Pac-10, the Pac-12.
Right.
And when the hammer came down, everybody was like, oh, all right, cool. Now's our opportunity to maybe step into USC's role.
Yeah.
That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because without USC, nobody gave a crap about the Pac-12. And look what happened when USC decided to pack their bags.
Yeah.
Conference falls apart.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's always been USC versus the world as far as I'm concerned. So as far I am going to miss the rivalries with Stanford and Cal. But other than that, could not care less. I'm looking forward to better games, more marquee name type of games. USC can play Ohio State on the more regularly than just in a Rose Bowl or in a bowl game.
Yeah.
Our first conference games in Michigan. That's what college football is all about. Yeah. And I'm hoping as we continue to move forward that we don't get away from this. You know, we don't start dumbing down our schedules, trying to buy our way into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which Alabama has a tendency to do. When I use the term buy, I'm talking about scheduling BYE, not necessarily buying the Citadel for a week.
Are you talking about well, I don't know. I remember a year where every team that Alabama played against had their bye week right before they played us. So it hasn't always worked out in the way that outside perception says.
How much control does Alabama have with their conference scheduling? The reason I ask is it seems like there's always either a bye week or a FCS team ahead of the game before the Iron Bowl.
Right, but that's like the whole conference has an FCS game that week.
That's my point about buying your way in.
But we also anytime somebody says that, I say I did that because people ask me. I went back and looked, and our schedule's the top 5, top 10 every year. So we could talk about the scheduling and stuff, but it shakes out at the end because it's in the SEC.
Yeah.
Because, again, I think that becomes because it's the SEC. I've never bought into that. Again, I've been around long enough to remember it didn't matter where Auburn, if USC was playing on the Plains or in Fayetteville or back in the day coming into Birmingham or Tuscaloosa. It didn't matter. As long as you have the right type of players and your system works, it doesn't matter what conference you're in. Alabama today could go into the big conference, the Big Ten conference, and be just as dominant as they are in the SEC. And Michigan and Ohio State can come into the SEC and do the same thing because of the caliber of players that they have in the program. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole here. That's probably maybe making
but I mean to but to Herb's
go ahead, Ross.
To Herb's point, no. To Herb's point, let me ask you a question, Mark. Over the past decade, or even a little over a decade, what has been the most dominant conference in college football?
Well, if we're going to gauge it by winning the championship, sure, we can point to the SEC. But if you want to look at individual matchups, look at it that way. Because again, Alabama might have won the national championship, but how much of it are you giving to Vanderbilt? How much, when do they get to? When does Mississippi State get to celebrate Alabama's national championship? But I mean, just riding the coattails because they're in the SEC, that's what I go back to. It's always been USC and the rest of the conference in the Pac-12. USC doesn't take credit for anybody else's accolades. It doesn't make USC any better if Oregon or Oregon State has a better season. That hurts USC.
I guess I'm not really fun because if you're going to talk about conference love and everybody nobody our conference hates us. So they're not right. If you promised our conference, everybody in the conference $10 million if we won, they would forego the $10 million and root for us to lose.
When Alabama beats Michigan, but when Alabama plays a Michigan and beats them, or before Texas was in the SEC, whenever you play those types of, when Alabama beat USC, it was SEC Pride Month. At least that's what it felt like.
If USC had beat us, they would have loved it.
Well, you have to understand. Try and look at it from the perception from the outside looking in. Yeah. I kind of get the sense that people think the Pac-12 was weak. There's times when USC probably deserved to be in the championship game over Florida. I mean, we can go back to that 2008 season. This is why we always have these fun off-season conversations, because of the bias that's built in. I mean, go back to that 2008 season. You remember who ended up playing in the championship game? Oklahoma versus Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that year?
Yep.
Okay. That same weekend that Florida lost their one game, they lost at home to Mississippi State, and Tim Tebow got up in there and cried, and that'll never happen again apology. That same weekend, USC lost on the road to Oregon State. Oregon State, Mississippi State had the identical record at the end of the season. However, Florida got the benefit of the doubt, played Oklahoma in the championship game. USC had the number one defense in the country. They gave up less than 10 points per game. So again, yeah, people say, well, the SEC is just a tougher schedule from top to bottom. I don't know about that. I think on a year-to-year basis, maybe. But when it comes to
I would,
who's
I would
better,
say, yeah, on a year-to-year, yeah.
When it comes to saying which conference is better than the other, I don't know. To me, that's just obviously one side rooting for the other side.
Right. Well, I mean, but you say like USC is like carrying the whole conference and they're the best there clearly. And we feel like the SEC is definitely deeper. I would definitely, I just don't think you're going to win that argument.
Or this current run by Kirby Smart. Where was Georgia forever?
They were a really good team that couldn't get over the hump.
Okay, but what's a really good team? Oregon can say they were a really good team. Washington can say they're a really good team. Stanford could say they were a really good team. You see, I can go down the list of Pac-12 teams that can say, hey, we were a really good team for a period of time. But if you're not winning the championship, who cares? Everybody, it's easy to schedule an average 10 wins a season when 4 of your games, let's be honest here, we know how the SEC schedules their out-of-conference games compared to how the Pac-12 would do it. Or let me just put it this, how USC would do it. And trust me, I am beyond upset about the Ole Miss USC series being canceled. I look forward to these types of matchups.
Yeah.
I love USC playing Notre Dame every year. Make the schedule difficult.
I agree with that part. Especially, but I feel like that'll happen more with the 12, team playoff, or especially
I hope so.
Expanded again.
I really hope so. I listened to the commissioner, or whatever you want to call him, who's in charge of the college football playoff committee this year. And he said, they're going to be very transparent. They're going to make strength of schedule one of the, top, factors that they look at. They said that in the past. They don't always adhere to that policy.
Right. Well, with everybody going to a super conference, it might actually happen, which I know you said you're not like, I miss the Pac-12. I miss staying up to like 9:30, 10 o'clock, for a game to start.
Later than that. Those Hawaii games that were starting later. So
yeah.
I don't know how, if you guys ever had Prime Ticket or any of those channels, Hawaii used to start their games 9 o'clock Pacific time.
Right.
3 hours earlier in Hawaii. So
right. Want to get a question that was on earlier, so we can kind of transition, I guess, into a little bit next year. So how is the QB room looking, front runner? And go ahead, Rod. You gonna say something?
No, this is something that I was going to ask Mark about too. Like, who's, as far as the QB room is concerned, like, who are the top dogs? Who's number one right now? Who's going to be the backup? How's that transition working out right now?
So USC have three quarterbacks on scholarship. Miller Moss is going to be the starter this year. They brought in Jaden Mayava through the transfer portal. He was a starter at UNLV last year as a freshman. Mountain West Conference Player of the Year, quarterback, had a really good season. 17 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So he's one of those risk it or biscuit type of guys. But now he's got, I would say, probably the best quarterback whisperer coaching him up. So Miller Moss, he sat behind, Caleb Williams for 2 years, and he had his opportunity in the Holiday Bowl.
Right.
And he tore up Louisville. I mean, that was a top 30 defense, allegedly. Miller Moss went in there, threw 6 touchdowns like he was, like it was practice. So the quarterback position is always going to be fine when Lincoln Riley's your head coach. So you got Miller Moss, who very cerebral. He might not be have the athletic skills or the skill set of a Caleb Williams, or be as big and as athletic as a Jaden Mayaba, who's 6'4", 220 pounds. But he plays the game the way you want your quarterback to play. He's going to make quick decisions. Instead of, extending a play and possibly leading to a sack, he'll just, he'll ground the football at somebody's feet. He'll make sure you're not playing behind the sticks.
Gotcha.
And you kind of saw how he approaches the game in that bowl game. And he's surrounded by a really good group of young receivers. So, yeah, the quarterback position's in really good hands.
Mm-hmm. So that means we have to ask your initial question, your initial assessment. Then, what's the other side of the ball looking like?
That's the $64,000 question. I love the stat. Yeah. And until I see it, all I know is USC went out and they bought a staff that is, I would say, second to no one. Danton Lynn, he's got that lineage. He comes from the Baltimore Ravens tree. His dad, Anthony Lynn, NFL coach. You went out, you get Matt Entz. You asked a head coach at North Dakota State who's won multiple national championships, do me a favor, step down. I want you to be my linebacker coach. Mm. So that's USC's linebacker coach right now.
Nice.
You went and you took Doug Belk. I know you might be familiar with that name. I believe he was on Nick Saban's staff at one point. He is now USC's secondary coach. Lincoln Riley outbid Kirby Smart for Doug Belk. In return, Kirby Smart went and took Dante Williams away from USC as far as being his cornerbacks coach. So there is that tit for tat going on.
We've uncovered a USC Georgia rivalry we didn't even know about.
Yeah, the whole cherry on the top. USC kept one coach from last year's defensive roster, and that was Sean Nua. But they needed somebody who can make an impact down south. They said, you know what? There's a guy over at the LA Rams. His name's Eric Henderson. He was coaching Aaron Donald. He's now part of USC's defensive staff. He is part of the defensive line. He's one of the two defensive line coaches. So USC revamped their defensive staff. Again, it is a top-notch staff. They have the talent. Now we get to see if it was the X's and O's that was screwing it up last year,
right,
or if it was the Jibbies and the Joes.
Right. Everyone
agrees. Even you guys will agree. It was the X's and O's that was putting those guys in a bad situation.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was too consistently bad,
Yeah.
We would
not think there was no talent out there. Yeah.
When your team is scoring 40+ points per game and you're losing, then you know what the problem is. That's got to suck. Caleb's running around saying, "What else do you want me to do on the offense? There's nothing else I can do. You guys have to play your part too."
Right. No, they were constantly trying to take square pegs and putting them in round holes. I mean, Shane Lee, he came over from Alabama to play linebacker at USC. He didn't fit the system. I mean, over and over again, it was using the wrong type of player and trying to force feed it into a system rather than adapting to what you have.
Right.
And
we had an OC that did that. He lasted a couple years, and it did not turn out as well as we would have thought. So
who was that OC, by the way?
Bob. I forget where Bob ended up. He almost went to Ohio State, right, and then ended up somewhere on the
Patriots.
Coast, right?
Didn't he go back to the Patriots or something like that?
Yeah, for a minute, but then he came back to college.
Former
he's
it's like
he's
Boston
at Ohio
College
State
or
now.
Something. No, he's not
Nick Saban knows how to rehab coaches. I mean, USC had Steve Sarkisian. They had Lane Kiffin. They both, for whatever reasons, didn't succeed at USC for different reasons.
Yeah.
But you go through that Nick Saban training program and you come out on the other side and look what happens.
It is Boston College.
Right, Boston College. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I forgot about
you are
that,
absolutely correct. If you can come and make it a couple years with Nick Saban, the head coaching job.
Yeah.
Which is funny because we had when Spencer was on here, he mentioned Tommy Reese as our OC and the one guy from the whole tree that didn't get a head coaching job. So just kind of tell you how bad that was. So yeah. There have been some duds.
Well, Tommy Reese was never a head coach.
Yeah.
So that's what I'll say to that. When Nick Saban took Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian under his wing, he's taken former head coaches, guys who probably weren't ready for the position at USC. Right. Again, coaching at USC, coaching at Alabama, a little bit different than coaching at San Diego State, Fresno State, those types of programs.
Would 1,000% agree. So, and that's kind of why when Raj and I kind of grew up with a real USC dominance too. So we, like, that's when we kind of really got into college football, and that's what we knew for a long time. So we get where you're coming from. Did want to take a look at the schedule, and you've had a couple on this LSU game about how big this is, and I think obviously in SEC country we're writing you off. I mean, let's just be honest, we're like, LSU is going to win this one, but you've got some different thoughts on that one, right? To start off your year.
Well, how much do you know about USC and LSU? Because what I know, these programs, they mirror image each other right now. They both replaced their defensive coaching staffs. They're both replacing Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks.
Right.
That's
the extent of my knowledge, by the way. So
they both were really bad on defense last year.
Yes.
And I believe, didn't Brian Kelly also make some adjustments on the offensive side of the ball with his coaching staff as well?
Yes.
I'm not sure on that one.
And of course Jaden Daniels is gone, so I don't know how.
That's what he's saying. Yeah, with the coach, he's talking about personnel wise, though, not like just
I know.
Yeah.
So here's how I look at the game. It's literally USC's strength versus LSU's weakness, and LSU's strength versus USC's weakness.
Mm-hmm.
LSU is supposed to have one of the best offensive lines in the country this year. Both their tackles are expected to go really high in the draft. Garrett Nussmeier, very similar to Miller Moss, same type of quarterback. LSU lost their best wide receivers. USC's best wide receivers are coming back. I don't know if LSU's secondary can match up with USC's wide receivers, whereas I have to see, can USC's run defense stop LSU? Because that's where they're going to go. Right. Until USC shows, until they prove they can stop the run, that's what's going to get tested. I have no doubt that this is going to be one of those, both teams are going to score.
Yeah.
It's which defense cannot get off the field the most.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come to in this game.
I love that this is a Sunday game too. I'm so interested in watching this game. But I'm more interested in the fact that you've got an Oklahoma guy who has been trashing USC for like most of the year, has attacked the LSU person on our show, is behind you at like, Mark, did you talk to Air Raid Mike before? Like, is there some collusion going on here? Like, what is going on?
What I've been doing on my show is slowly just kind of bringing out the facts, pointing out strengths and weaknesses. So, again, I think everyone would agree when it comes to offense, Brian Kelly's a really good coach.
Right.
But if you had to choose Lincoln Riley or Brian Kelly, where you spending your money? Lincoln Riley is an offensive savant. Yes. He knows how to take quarterbacks and wide receivers and just make that part of the game work.
Right.
Now we're asking him, hey, dedicate some of your attention to the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
And that's what he said he's doing. He's when the 2023 season ended, his own words, I'm going to make defense number one. Or I'm going to make defense the number one priority at USC when it comes to building this team.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means he's putting offense on the back burner, but he's going to focus on defense first before anything else.
Right.
That's the first good sign.
And let me say, so this wasn't even a planned question, but it was a conversation I had with someone before earlier today, not on this subject, but just football in general. And some people don't make good head coaches, but they make excellent coordinators. Sure. Do you feel that way about Lincoln Riley, or do you feel like, he'll be fine as head coach?
Can we table that question till after this season?
Yes. That means you have to promise to come back, though, so we can talk about it then.
Please.
I made that point too, because remember I mentioned that about Lane Kiffin at one time because if you look back at Lane Kiffin's coaching career, he's been a lot of places, both NFL and college, and I told you he's a really good coordinator at Bama, maybe just not a good head coach. But hey, Ole Miss had a pretty good season last year, and they're projected to make the playoff this year. So maybe I was wrong about that. I don't know. We'll see.
Excuse me. Lincoln Riley just turned 40. Well, he's 40.
He just turned 40?
He's about to turn 40. He's a very young coach. So think about when Lane Kiffin was the Raiders head coach.
Right.
Yep.
And then he was the USC head coach.
Raiders, USC, Tennessee. Yeah, he's been everywhere.
Exactly. I mean, you have to. Experience matters.
Yeah.
The wisdom matters.
Yeah.
And the more you go through things, I just heard Nick Saban say, you need to fail. You need to go through hard things in order to be successful in life. You don't learn by doing things the right way. You learn by making mistakes.
Yeah.
I agree. 1,000%.
I agree.
So, and air raid's behind him. So, yep. And that's why I asked that, though, but because one side of the ball has been lacking, like everywhere he goes,
Yeah.
So that's not a shot at Lincoln Riley. That's just an honest, genuine question.
It is what it is. Until he gets that monkey off his back.
Yeah.
Where he can put up a defense that's giving up less points than his offensive scoring. He's got to, he's got to wear it.
Yeah.
But then you get, the hyperbolic statements from the Paul Feinbaums of the world, and it's just like, please prove it soon so that guy can.
Man, you gotta love Paul Feinbaum. How can you not love Paul Feinbaum?
Raj can't even say it with a straight face.
When Phyllis from Mulga is what you're known for, you're not referring to the most highly.
I remember that call.
Yeah. He's a character. We'll just go.
He's definitely going to miss Nick Saban and vice versa. So
yeah. All right. So kind of going through the rest of the schedule. I'm trying to figure out who made y'all's schedule because going to Michigan, coming home to Wisconsin, which is a tough one. Penn State. I'm never high on Penn State, but I know it's a highly ranked team every year. So and then finishing up with at UCLA. I know the offense has been there, but like you said, tough defense at Notre Dame. And we've had the hot seat questions.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of schedule? I don't know if it's still too. What kind of record prediction are you kind of looking at this schedule? Where your tough games, your trap games, how do you feel like USC navigates this schedule?
So I'm on record. I said USC is a 10-win team this year. I said they're going 10-2. I haven't specifically picked out which games they would lose. USC always loses a game to a team they should never lose to. It's just who they are.
Right.
That year, 2008, they lost to Oregon State with the best defense in the country, yet they figured out how to lose a game.
Right.
It happens.
Yeah.
Football bounces a funny way.
Yeah.
So when you look at that schedule, obviously it's top heavy. It's front loaded.
Right.
LSU, you come home, Utah State, bye week, travel to Ann Arbor, come home, Wisconsin, travel to Minnesota.
Do you like having the bye week after 2 games?
No, I'd rather have it probably after Michigan.
Right.
Yeah.
Before Wisconsin. Give the bodies a little bit extra time to rest because I know what Sharon Moore is going to be bringing.
Right.
They're trying to figure out who their quarterback is right now. I saw what they did to Penn State. They didn't throw the ball in the entire second half.
Yeah.
And I anticipate a lot of that coming when USC shows up.
Agree.
So again, until USC shows they can stop the run, that's what they should anticipate.
Right.
But here's what I would say. If USC comes out of those first 6 games ending with Penn State,
right,
you've got 1 or no losses, watch out. Because at that point now, you've got that confidence level growing. And you know what happens when a locker room's feeling that vibe.
Yeah.
And USC, their last game back east, Maryland, October 19th. That could be a trap game.
Who does it? I don't, but I guess Talia's gone. I don't even know who Maryland's trotting out. I guess.
Yeah, Talia tried to come back, I think, but I don't know if he tried to execute some sort of waiver or something to try to come back for another year, but they denied that. So he had to. I want to say he's in the CFL, to be honest with you.
I think he's in the CFL too. Yes, Raj.
I believe Maryland's. Well, they're looking at he's one of the guys competing for the starting quarterback. Was the starter at Minnesota last year.
Okay,
and he wasn't very good. So, but here's what you have going at Maryland. I think Mike. he knows how to coach offense as well.
Yeah.
His teams are sneaky good. And again, that's why I would say it could be a trap game, especially if it's one of those early sports.
I got you. And then, like you said, you kind of navigate. Go ahead, Raj.
No, I'm saying after the Maryland game, which we just discussed, I mean, it looks pretty smooth sailing from there. And then obviously, anything could happen with the Notre Dame game. I think some people have projected that Notre Dame's might make the playoff this year because due to their specific schedule. I know we don't have that pulled up right now, but I think
they're starting in the top 5 too, right?
Yeah, that is a really
Notre Dame.
Yeah,
they have a really soft schedule this year, so that game could go up or down. But Herb, what would you say by looking at USC's schedule? What would you give their projected win total to be?
So I like the so let's start with what he said. And by the way that you're doing yours with 10-2 and saying I don't know which two, it's kind of funny because we do a game by game breakdown later on in Alabama, but it's like I'd say 10-2 is a good season for Alabama. But if you ask me to pick us to lose 2 games, I'm not doing that. So I'm like,
it's like why put that bad voodoo on there?
Right. It's interesting to me though, Raj. When I look at it, I feel like their first and last games are the most interesting to me. So those are the 2 toughest. And if I was gonna say 2, LSU is like you said because you do mirror each other, but those the first games of the year are always the weirdest games. You don't know what you've got. Strange stuff happens, turnovers that you don't see any other time the rest of the year happen, So
and we're going to know who Michigan is by the time USC gets up there because they open their season against Texas. And so I have a feeling Steve Sarkisian is going to want to go up there and
And I just feel like Michigan at that stage, like you said, if you can stop the run, you'll be able to slow them down. But if they out physical you, then Michigan can take that. I think it's just like Michigan last year, really. But obviously, it's not rocket science for me to say like the LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame. Those are the games I'm looking at. I always feel like Penn State's overrated, so I'm probably overlooking a game I shouldn't, and that's clearly bias on my part.
As long as James Franklin is their head coach, they are always going to find a way to lose a big game. I mean, he's proven it year after year after year. He did it against USC in the Rose Bowl. If you guys watch that game. So
I hate to say that, but it's true.
Well, look, if they can get Drew Allar to take that next step where he can actually put the team on his shoulders, they've got a solid running game. They're fine there.
Right.
It's always going to be pretty solid on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah.
Is Drew Allar ready to take the next step? And can he do it on the road at USC?
Yeah. I feel like Franklin is riding that Vanderbilt wins and then being third best in the Big Ten for years. And they're just like, he's not bad enough to fire, but not good enough to get them to the next step. So you're just kind of stuck in, they could easily, with their I haven't looked at this year's schedule, but they're like a 10-2 team losing to Michigan and Ohio State every year. And 1 year they'll beat one of them. That's what I think of when I think of Penn State.
Again, after USC goes to Maryland, they don't leave the West Coast. Their next away game is at Washington. It's in November. So that might be their worst weather game of the season. Ironically, and everybody say, oh, they're moving to the big conference. They can't play in that type of weather. Nobody plays in that type of weather in the big conference until the very end of the season when it's Michigan at Ohio State or Ohio State and Michigan. Otherwise, it's not an issue.
No, I agree. And we're good friends with the Washington guy, and he doesn't expect much out of Washington. So I think skipping over that one too.
But they got a coach turnover. So Jed Fish, as long as Husky fan can remain patient, Jed Fish took Arizona out of the cellar.
Right,
a really good program. They'll do the sweeping of Washington. It'll take a couple of years.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think what you see from Washington next year is their long term. But I mean, they got hit hard by the offseason. I mean, you can't. There's just no way around that.
Absolutely.
Well, there's no other question there, Raj. Did you want to get into the questions of death? Are you?
Let's do it, and let's do it. And I know everybody else gave their opinion as far as USC's projected. I could see 9-3 or 10-2 as well with the games that we already mentioned. The LSU, the Michigan, and the Notre Dame. I'm still 50-50 about it. I don't know, and obviously as the season progresses, we'll see how good Michigan's going to be. And I think that's a question that maybe a lot of other people want to know how good Michigan's going to be this year.
Yeah,
Obviously they did what they did last year, but
Air Raid, which game did they lose? If you tell us that, we'll post it up. All right, Raj, who starts?
He already said. You go ahead.
Okay. All right, here we go. Game that we like to play. It's called Work, Play, Live, and we like to throw in one called Ditch as well. We're going to give you 4 names, okay?
Okay.
And you have to tell us which person you want to work with. That's who you want to spend your 40 hours a week working with. Live is who is your next door neighbor, that person that comes home and tells you your grass isn't cut or offers, bothers your lawnmower or whatever. Play, who's the person you're going out with on Friday nights.
Okay.
And Ditch, who, when they call you, are you letting it go to voicemail? Okay. All right. Got Caleb Williams, Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Pete Carroll.
All right.
Ooh.
So what were the choices again?
Work, play, live, ditch.
All right. I'm working with Pete Carroll. First and foremost, that dude knows how to sell snow to an Eskimo. I mean, he literally, I don't know what it is about his personality, but it's infectious. You want to do something when you're around him.
Right.
Yeah. I have seen his locker room speeches. I've seen, how he just talks to people, the motivation, the way he motivates. You literally will run through a wall for that guy. So
Pete Carroll just seems like somebody that's just fun to be around, and seems like he just wants everybody else to be happy. Very, very altruistic. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing about having a job is it doesn't feel like a job.
Right.
And I think working with Pete Carroll, it would never feel like a job.
Right.
Yep.
Now, mow the lawn.
Yeah.
Who are you living next to?
Yeah. Matt Leinart.
Okay.
We see things through the same lens.
Okay.
What were the other 2 choices?
So play and ditch.
Yes. Play. Who are you going out with on Friday night, and who are you letting your phone go to voicemail when they call? You still have Reggie Bush and Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
All
right. So I'm gonna go out and play with Reggie Bush.
There you go.
That's about,
I mean, you gave him his Heisman back and everything. You should go out, right?
He's in a good mood. Yeah.
To this day, you still have young players who talk about Reggie Bush like he played last year.
Right.
I mean, if I need to, ride somebody's coattails, I'm going to ride Reggie's coattails. And then obviously, Caleb, I'll get back to you.
Do you at least text them back and say, sorry, Mr. Cole?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I enjoyed covering Caleb Williams in his time at USC. In fact, he did me a really solid. The last question he asked at USC's Pro Day, he made sure I got the last question in.
Oh,
so
wow.
he walked the row, and he got all the national guys were shouting their stuff in. And I was there, and he was like, no, hey, let me get my guy in there. And so
he's looking out for you, but you're like,
well, look, Caleb knows I'm busy. He knows I'm hanging with Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
Oh,
get back to him.
Oh, it hurts.
Oh,
it hurts. Goodness. All right, Raj, what you got?
All right, Mark. So obviously you are a diehard USC fan. Let's just say someone came up to you and said you had to move across country to the Southeast. And since you're moving to the Southeast, we need you to follow a new SEC program for the next 2 to 3 years, maybe even longer, depending on how things go. Which program would you want to follow? And when I mean follow, you go to the media days, you report on them, you do your social media stuff, and you wear the paraphernalia for that team. Which SEC?
All the USC stuff goes into a box and you slide it off.
You got to get rid of all the USC stuff for this tenure.
See, there's a loophole here for me. I can actually cheat and not feel too guilty about it.
Oh man, I hate the
Oh
loophole.
no, you're going South Carolina, aren't you?
No.
No. Oh,
I'm going to Alabama, and let me tell you why. I can wear a sweatshirt that says Tusk, and I can play Fleetwood Mac all day long playing Tusk, and I can have USC going in my head all day long.
oh my goodness.
We just try to cheat on the show.
That's actually I'll give it to you, Mark. That's a pretty creative answer, so I'll give you that one. Okay.
No. Like said, we need better neighbors. Sorry, yeah. You're probably right. Cat wants her some Reggie Bush. All right. So with USC moving and all the conferences and shakeup and everything, if you had to redo their schedule and pick rivals for them, I want one from the Big Ten, one from the ACC, and one from the SEC that USC would play every year.
The way it's currently configured.
Yes, the way it's currently configured.
All right. So if I'm picking one from the Big Ten.
But you can't, in the Big Ten, you cannot pick a former Pac-12 team.
Gotcha. No UCLA, no Oregon, no Washington.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
They're already not even on my list. So
good.
USC needs they need Northwestern. That way I can go to Chicago. And you got that private school versus private school thing going on again.
I feel like you're going to crush them every year, but I like that pick.
Yeah.
That's another reason.
Yes.
I can flip a coin and I can choose either Cal or Stanford. We talked about this earlier on the show. Though I'm going to miss playing those two teams each year. Mm-hmm. So flip a coin. It doesn't matter. USC has played Cal more than any other team over her history. So that's their longest running rivalry that's coming to an end. Stanford has always been a thorn in USC's side. John McKay, once said he wants to beat them 2,000-0. And that was when Stanford wasn't good, but they always jumped up and bit USC at the time they shouldn't. I won't even get into 2007. Well, yes, I will, because I know SEC fan watches this game. This is how much I know the SEC in general does not want USC to do well. Remember when USC lost to Stanford at the Coliseum? They were a 41-point favorite. LSU was playing, I think they were playing Florida in Baton Rouge. And when the final score was announced in Death Valley, that game came to a standstill. The entire stadium erupted like LSU had just won the national championship. I saw the players on the field. They were all jumping up and down, waving their arms. It was like the world was saved. The USC monster was dead. That was that Pete Carroll dynasty. That was right in the middle of it.
Oh, yeah. We remember that. That's when we were very avid watchers and we didn't have a whole lot to cheer for. So,
yeah. I remember those years.
And by the way, I will always support this. Give me the Vanderbilts. Let me play some Rutgers. So I will always make that choice.
So as far as if I have to weigh it animosity wise, I would probably take Stanford out of the ACC. Mm-hmm. And no, that's not an easy game. I saw that comment that just came up there for a second. And then out of the Big 12, who's left over there?
Yeah, I honestly at times have to pull the Big 12 still up, to see. Like you could take Utah. I guess that's one that you might.
Utah, Oklahoma State,
Baylor, Texas, Arizona just ended up there. Yeah, so
those are all Arizona. Give me Oklahoma State.
There you go.
Yeah,
give me Okie State. How long are they going to be on the Power 4 conference?
Gundy does a lot with nothing every year, so I think they'll stick around for a little while. They made the Big 12 championship game last year.
Yeah.
All right, Raj, what you got?
Easy one to finish it off. Mark, just curious, who are your top 3 USC college football players of all time? You don't have to give them an order. Just want to know who are your top 3.
I was asked to do a Mount Rushmore one time, and I put up 5 guys. And it's like there's only 4.
You just chiseled in an extra head over there. You said, forget it.
Yeah. Same thing with Alabama. if you had to pick 4 guys for your Mount Rushmore,
Oh gosh,
how do you stop at 4? Really?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. So honestly, when we do those kind of questions, we say of the Saban era, and it's still tough. So
exactly.
And like Herb said, since we moved to Alabama in '94, anything prior to that, like we're somewhat familiar with. Like obviously Derek Thomas played at Alabama, but we weren't living in Alabama when he played there. So there's certain names we just probably don't mention. But yeah.
So
sorry to go on a tangent there.
Oh, please keep going. My favorite player growing up as a kid. He was probably the player that said, "Mark, you're going to be a USC fan for the rest of your life." Ricky Bell, running back.
Okay.
Dude was a horse. He should have won the Heisman Trophy, but he and Chuck Muncie, they split the West Coast votes back in the day. Archie Griffin won it twice at Ohio State. So Ricky Bell is definitely in my top 3. Probably Ronnie Lott.
Oh wow, I forgot him.
And they both wear the same jersey number, so I don't have to switch jerseys. and this is, again, there's just so many players to choose from. But I would say, and look, I'm not even bringing up a Heisman Trophy winner, Junior Seau.
Wow, forgot Junior Seau too.
Oh yeah,
poor Reggie Bush.
There's been so many great players that have gone, that walk that tunnel onto the field. It's hard. It's really hard. So,
I agree.
Ask me that question in 5 minutes. I'll give you 3 different names.
All right, give me some
I
more
feel
players.
you. I feel you. All right, Mark. One last question, and we're going to let you go.
Okay.
USC playing Alabama in the national championship game. You've got seats on the 50-yard line, and you have to invite one person from this list. Okay, Herb or Raj?
Come on, Mark. Make the right answer.
I have 2 seats, right?
No.
No,
you have to sit in
you
one.
Have to go.
So
you have to go. Yeah.
The press box.
No.
So this is the problem with inviting people on that have the podcast. They keep using that answer. That's like the third time.
All right. Man, you're making me. All right. Who's older between the 2 of you?
You can take a guess.
No. Without us telling. Who do you think is older? Who do you think is older? Who do you think is older?
I see some gray in your face. So I'm shade today. You see a lot of gray in my face.
I'll shade.
Everyone
why do I have a feeling Herb's older right now?
I'm definitely older.
I don't know.
Everyone guesses that Raj is older
because of the gray, right? Yeah.
Because I'm the oldest brother of 3. I got to pay deference to Big Brother. You've got
Mark.
not the first Raj. You got one. You probably have longer to live, so there'll be more opportunities for me to have you sit next to me.
You know what? Don't care. I'll take the victory.
I can live with that answer.
I could get it. So, Mark, man, we appreciate you. Want to tell everybody where they can find you, or what you're working on next, or what's coming up?
So 5 times a week, Locked On USC.
Yep, been checking you out there.
Doing a little bit more of that as we get into the season. I always do post-game reactions. And when I'm not hanging out doing the Locked On USC podcast, I'm writing articles at wearesc.com. And there is a lot of content over there. So I offer the opinion pieces. I've got Eric McKinney, who does most of the team stuff. I chip in there as well. You want USC recruiting information? His name is Scott Schrader. And then if you want really good biting commentary with opinion, his name is Chris Arledge. We got you covered. So wearesc.com, Locked On USC podcast. Yeah. Head on over. Check it out.
Yeah. I had you blind. We were in the house today. We just moved, and I was checking you out for the whole day too. So good stuff, man. Definitely appreciate it.
We appreciate you, Mark.
Do this again.
Oh yeah, and Win checking in for that. Thank you, Win. Appreciate that. So I'll take a victory any way you can get it. So, and there's Randy. Yep. Randy, I know Randy was slinging some arrows, but he's a really good guy, man. He has a good Georgia podcast, and honestly, he's been one of our biggest supporters behind the scenes too as well.
Yes,
so really good guy.
Huge shout out to Randy. Yes.
When I record my show, that'll come up tomorrow. I'll give you guys a shout out. And again, I hope the show continues to grow. I had a really good time doing this, and
awesome.
Look forward to doing it again. And USC versus Alabama in the national championship game. That's what college football is all about.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
So
That
we'll definitely have to get together if that happens.
That would be one of the highest rated games on TV forever.
Agreed.
And USC needs to make up for that last showing they did against
we will that game that will go nameless. So
yes.
Appreciate everybody, man, for tuning in
Thank you
tonight.
so much,
Mark,
Mark,
thank you for being our guest. We really appreciate it for closing out our summer series. Raj, we'll be back next week. We'll probably figure out next Tuesday morning what we're doing next Tuesday night. So
yeah.
have a great night and roll tide.
Roll Tide.